welcome back everyone. Here's episode 3 of Showville, and today we're going to get into the farming DLC, the industries DLC, specifically the farming side of it. In the last couple of episodes we've already set up a bit of our city where we've got some suburbs, a bit of more dense area, some of our industry area, and now we're going to focus on our first industries area. So I've done a little bit of prep work just then. I let the game run for a bit, so we've got a bit of money. I've put this one-way industry road in, because we're going to need our processing buildings. We'll get to that in a bit, and yeah, we'll get into it. So first things first, we've already got our farming main building, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave that off for now, and we will have a look at what buildings we have for farming. So we unlocked this not too long ago, but what we've got is this small crop field. So this generates our raw materials. So you can see here in the industries area, you've got your extractor buildings which generate your raw materials. So for some reason it's showing us forestry. So in this case it's crops, which then go into your processing buildings, which are not that. The one that we've got at the moment is a small animal pasture, so that takes in crops to feed the animals, which then generates animal products. So that's your processing buildings. Then you go out to unique factories from there, or you can export them. Yeah, so we've got 21 workers in our industry area already, which is nice. It's only level 1 because we haven't actually done anything with it yet, but we're getting there. So I've made these probably a little bit too small to actually put these roads a bit too small to put these back to back in, but that's okay. One of the main things that I found with the industries DLC, especially with the extractor buildings, is that if you place these buildings down paused, so I'll just place one down now, what happens is this storage slowly fills up as it's generating crops, right? So once it reaches maximum capacity, once the storage is full, it will generate a truck to then send the crops off somewhere. Now generally you'd want that to go to a storage facility which is nearby, so that the truck from your generator, your generating building, doesn't have to travel all the way off the map, and especially for this kind of map, like that's a long way to then export. So yeah, you want to have your storage buildings, but we'll sort that out. So you want to actually have the game running when you place these, because otherwise they're all going to generate a truck at the same time, and it is just going to be a nightmare. So we'll leave the game running. I'm going to put it back to 1 speed, just so that this guy doesn't generate a truck too quick for me before I'm ready. But what we'll do is we'll place a few of these. So this is going to, as you can see, it's going to generate 3168 units per week. Now that's important because your processing buildings, like your farm pasture, each one of these can only do 2400 per week. So you're going to generate more crops than, for one of those small crops, than what can be used in a small animal pasture. So when you're planning out your industries area, you really need to take that into account as to how much you're generating versus how much you can process. So I mean, the production rate of these at peak is 4800. So generally you'd need 2 of these animal pastures for 1 of these small crops. So put a few of these in. I like to wait a little bit when putting these in, and I don't like to put them all in one area, especially since we've already got farming industry in here. So trying to space these out, it's more of a look side of things, but it makes it look quite good. So we've got this one generating 4800, this one generating 3100, 4100, and this will probably be another 4800. So that all, the amount that they generate all depends, and now that I've put them in, I'm going to pause it. It all depends on how well, how much resources they have underneath them, right? So as you can see, these guys don't have as dense. So this yellow is the farming, where the fertile land. So farming uses fertile land. As you can see, under where I've put these ones, it doesn't have as great coverage. So what I'm going to do, I am going to just cheat a little bit, and I am just going to paint in some fertile land. If it will let me. It's interesting. Why is that not working? Oh, it is actually working. It's just that there's buildings already there. Alright, so now what we should see, so that's gone up a little bit. Same with that. I wonder if it's because I've already got roads and it's already zoned. Anyway, that's one way that you can actually do that, is with this ground resources mod, is you can paint in your own resources. So we're just going to live with that, that's fine. But what I do want to do is we'll put in some processing buildings. So not that tab. What we'll do is we'll go to our processing buildings and grab some small animal pastures. I want to put them on this one-way road, and I want to put them actually down this end of this one-way road, because what we're going to do is we're going to have our storage, and then we're going to have our processing buildings. So I'm going to need to move this bus depot over to here, and probably relocate the farmhouse, the firehouse as well. So now that we've got that, we'll look at our storage buildings. So we've unlocked the small grain silo. One thing with storage buildings, when you place them down, I'm going to pause it again because I don't want masses of trucks. So you place them down, they have a storage mode. So not a lot of people actually look at the tooltip for this. There's based on what storage mode you put in, depends on whether you're going to import resources or not. So balanced, as it says, balanced will try and keep it half full. So if you're not generating resources when you put these down, it's going to import. It's going to import a heap of crops. Now it can store 300 tons worth of crops, right? And these guys are generating per truck 18. So that's a lot of trucks to try and half fill it. So you're talking about 150 tons to half fill it, because it's trying to keep it at half. So you're going to import at cost. So I like to keep it at empty. Empty tries to keep it the storage empty by selling the resource. So what I like to do is have a couple of these on my production line, so that these guys will send the crops to here, and then from here they will then go to the production line. If the production line can't handle the crops, or doesn't need it, that's when they'll export them. So that's at least the way that it's worked in the past for me. I don't like putting them next to each other either, like too close to each other, because these guys are gonna come straight off this road and then try and go in here. So the other reason why we've got a one-way road. So we've got those. We need to expand our industries area like so, and then we will look at putting in a couple of farming pastures. Now, I said 2 of these guys for every 1 of these guys, right? So we've got 4 of these guys, so we need 8 of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not going to be able to fit it. That's poor planning for you. Alright, we've got 5. So the rest of the crops are actually going to go to our small grain silo. And I want to actually leave this one on balance so I can show you exactly what happens. Are going to go to our small grain silos, and then they're going to be exported. Generally, the small grain silos that don't need to be on site. Storage buildings can be placed outside of industry area. So what you can actually do is, depending how far your industry is from like your transportation, like your train or your airport, your cargo airport, when you eventually get it, you can actually have these guys sitting right next to your train, so that when they do have to export, they just jump straight to the train, then come back. Because what the trucks will do, these guys will export, go off the map, then come all the way back, and that only then will you actually gather the number of freight trucks will go down. So it's a long process for them to haul it off via a truck. So we'll let the game play a little bit, and that can show you what's going on. So these guys, if we speed it up a bit, we'll go maybe ×6. Speed it up a bit, these guys start filling up their crops, gathering their crops, either one. And so there's already 2 trucks in use for these guys, right? So they're going to go to here, and also to here, right? So we're starting to fill up our small grain silo, our first one. So this one's not filled up at all yet. So what's going to happen is we're going to get a heap of trucks coming in off our highway where the goods are being imported. So I think that will be one. No, it'll happen, trust me. So see how it's generating trucks occasionally. So it's got 1, but it's hitting it like 40%, so it's trying to generate trucks to actually get rid of the crops. And here you go. Now we're starting to get a backup of trucks, because you've got guys coming into here to try and fill this up to 50%. So, I mean, the trucks are already coming. They're already, look at that. This is a prime example of what I'm talking about. The number of trucks just backing up off your freeway into your industry area is just ridiculous. So I try and keep those at empty because of this kind of traffic issues. So like now you've got issues backing up onto the highway. Look at that. It's all the way up on the on-ramp, all because of this. And there is no other reason, right? And you've also got your own industry stuff, so whatever's being generated here, trying to fill this up as well. So I'll let it go. It's going to be interesting to see how well it goes. and see how. So because we're so far away from the edge of the map, and it takes so long for the trucks to get back and everything, we've constantly got 12 freight trucks in use, right? And same with this one, right? So we're at 100% now for storage capacity for this one, and almost 100% for that one, and it's trying to export everything, and this is trying to export half of it. So it's one thing. I mean, everyone says that, a lot of people say that this is a traffic manager game, and it really is. It's something that you really need to be aware of when you're actually generating and doing this stuff. So go back to pigs, put a couple of pigs in, and we'll probably turn on the farming building. Now that's on. I don't think it really matters if it's on by the looks of that, but oh well. Let's see how our industry is going. So our storage is pretty much full. We're generating 38 tons. We've spent 419 a week on importing, and we've exported 1,000, right? So at the moment, I mean, ideally the way you do it to maximize profits is this 69 tons is what's coming out of the acquisition and storage, right? So at the moment we've got 17 tons a week going into your storage, or 25 tons into your storage, and then your storage is outputting 79 tons. 72 of it is going directly out of the map. 5 tons is going into animal products. So you want to maximize the amount that is going into your animal products. But that all comes with space and time and the flux capacitor. So what we can do is we can put another one of these in. I do want to put one around here somewhere. I just don't want to delete too much. Space is already occupied. What is that that's occupying it? Interesting. Let's have a look. Put one up here. Look at that. Put another animal pasture up there. Sometimes it can be a bad idea to actually put them all in one place. And if you've got an area like this where you can actually go back and forth fairly easily and your traffic isn't too bad, you can put them in places like that. So each of these buildings also requires workers, right? So just like your normal industry buildings, or just like your normal industry buildings, they require a certain number of workers at a certain level. Same with your industry buildings. Industry DLC buildings, that is. Like with Park Life, you have certain requirements to upgrade. For this, it's the number of workers and the number of resources produced. For Park Life, I think it's the entertainment value and the number of people that have gone through. So on that, you can tell how many workers, right? But if you're struggling to upgrade your industry due to the number of workers, one thing that you can do is hover over this eye, and it will give you the breakdown of what the available jobs are at what level. And what you can do is then see, I've got a mod on that allows us to employ overeducated workers, but what you can see is if you don't have a very good education system in your city, so for example you've got zero capacity for highly educated like I do at the moment, and you look at here and go, oh well, why have I only got 15 of 20 workers? Well, I don't have enough uneducated, I don't have enough educated, which is elementary school, and I need highly educated. which is university. So I don't have the university unlocked yet, so I can't fix that, but I know where my bottleneck is. Yeah. Alright, we're gonna let it grow and let the industry side of things do its thing. This area is a lot busier now. I might have to turn this into a bit of a roundabout just to accommodate some of the traffic depending how big it gets. But what we're going to do is throw to a time lapse for a bit, and I'll come back towards the end of the time lapse and we'll see how our industry area is going. Cool. Alright, just as I said that, the industry area is actually upgraded. So what we can now do is we can go over the new buildings that we've unlocked. So we've got the flour mill, the bakery, the farm workers barracks, which I'll go over what that is and what it means for the industry, cattle shed and small barn. So your flour mill is another processing. It generates flour, obviously. Bakery is actually a unique building, so it uses flour and animal products, I think. We'll check on that in a minute. But it then generates like bread, which can then be sold or exported or whatever. Your cattle shed is another processing building, I am quite certain, or it's a storage building for animal products. I think it's that second one. We'll check in a second. And small barn is like your grain silo. It's for that stuff, for your crops. So we've got our flour mill. So as I said, it will generate flour. So we can throw that in somewhere around here. We might chuck it there. Have to get rid of a building, but that's okay. So this uses 45 workers, so these are pretty good. It uses 13 tons worth of crops at optimum and generates 16 tons worth of flour. Like all the other processing buildings, like the small animal pasture, you want to actually have that, in a production line. Cattle shed is just like your small animal pasture, it's just a bit bigger, so and generates a bit more. So production rate of your small animal pasture, it's got $50 upkeep, costs just under 10,000 and does 2,400 with 5 trucks, whereas the cattle shed costs 200, it's 15,000 but does 3,200 per week, and it also has a higher electricity. So this requires electricity, this does not. So we're going to put one of these in anyway. It's not ideal for the beginning, but I'm okay with it. I'm sure I'll survive. It's another processing building, so it needs to be inside the industry zone, and there we have it. So I like to actually have the industries buildings inside zoned industries area, just because it does actually make it look a lot better. What the hell is there? Oh, that's the right. Yeah, so it does make it look better. Like you've got these generic industry buildings, and then you've also got industries DLC buildings like this. So looks like it's all generating quite well. Now this is what I was talking about. We don't have enough workers to get to the next level, but we do have enough jobs. So what we can do, this is the panel for the whole thing. I don't like importing things, so we're just going to change that. This is the panel for the whole of the industries area, and what we can do is actually hold the mouse over here, and it tells us in general for the whole industries area what our breakdown for education is, and for our workers. So we don't have enough uneducated workers, and we need to start looking at how we can get highly educated workers. Now we've got a large demand at the moment for our residential zoning, so that will come into play, because what we need to get our university level buildings is 7,000 people. So I reckon if we throw in some residential area, build up our city a little bit more, we should be able to get to that 7,000 pretty quick and be able to get a university. So this time I'm actually going to jump to a time lapse, and I'm going to build up the city a bit more. We'll keep an eye on the farming side of things, and we've got a nice fire spreading here. It's brilliant. We'll keep an eye on the farming side of things, and if there's any changes with it, I'll drop back in and we'll talk about it. One thing before I do go, I did say that I would talk about where was it? The workers' barracks. So the workers' barracks does not actually hold workers, so they don't live there, much to what it actually sounds like. They don't live there. They still live at their own houses throughout the city, but what it does do is each building increases the work efficiency by 5% up to a maximum of 10%. So in a large area, you can actually have, 20 of these to get a maximum of 100%, and that's going to generate, if you have 20 of those, it's going to generate 800 jobs. 800? Yeah, that sounds about right. 800 jobs for the zone. Now I'm going to put in 3 just because I can. It's going to give me an extra 15% work efficiency, which means that these guys are going to produce more. These guys are going to output more, so you can see that it's gone up to 5760. Same with this one. So that's the result of these farm workers barracks. So yeah, they don't actually need to have workers in them to work, as far as I can tell, but they will slowly fill up with workers. I've seen in the past where the other areas have actually lost workers, like your commercial zoning has actually lost workers because people wanted to go and work in an industry area. So that does happen, but hopefully it doesn't happen to us. We'll keep an eye on it, and we'll be back. average level 3 for the Florence estate, our farming district. So what this unlocks is the lemonade factory. So that's another unique building. It is massive. So we're not going to be putting that down anytime soon. A milking parlour, which again is another unique building. Medium crop field and medium fruit field. So they're just bigger sized, essentially producing buildings. So it also gives us, so it tells us what our efficiencies and our pollution is for the area as well. So I was just looking at expanding the highway down a bit, and what I've actually noticed is a lot of the fertile land is around here. So what I was going to do was put our producing buildings around here, because that's where our fertile land is. I'm going to expand the producing buildings out a bit, or not producing buildings, but the fertile land out a bit, just so that it covers this area, so that what I can do is either branch off here and put our buildings there, or probably what I'll do is I'll just make another exchange and have the same sort of set out as what I've got up here, just in here. That way they can use the highway to go back and forth, and what I'll end up doing is keeping them separated, have two different districts and that kind of thing. So I'm going to call it for this episode. It'll probably be a little bit shorter, but what I'll do is the next episode shouldn't be as long a wait. We'll get it sorted then, and hopefully I'll get onto a routine of putting up videos once a week for this series. This is one of the problems that we can face. Is it's gone away now, but because our freight trucks were going all the way off the map and then coming back, it then came up with an error of not an error, but an issue of not enough customers. So there's not enough commercial buildings, which it might happen again. No, all right. Not enough commercial buildings locally to actually use these the flour that we're producing. So the unique buildings, just to give you an idea, this is the size of the lemonade factory. It's quite large. So the bakery will take in all three products that we make from the farming industry, so we could potentially put that in soon. Somewhere will it actually fit? Actually, maybe we can do that. Put it right next to the flour mill. So what it will do is trucks will deliver all three, and then it will generate pastries, which at a production value of 3,800. So when we look at this, we'll be able to see, will we? No, it's part of our budget. So we'll be able to see from unique warehouses and unique buildings, we'll be able to see when it actually produces something. It will tell us how much that it makes. So there you go. It just sold off some for 2,900. Alright, I'm calling it there. We've made a fair bit of progress with the farming industry. We have expanded our area again. I do need to think about where I'm going to put the next lot of residential. Maybe I'll buy the tile off this way and we'll start expanding out this way. It's probably not an optimal location for it though, so I'm gonna have to have a think about it. There's a lot of trees down here now. I threw in a heap of trees because I want to do a forestry industry right next to the railway track. So there's the railway track that's running from one side of the map to the other. and what we can do once we get that unlocked, which I don't think it is at the moment. Nah, it requires 10,000 people. Once we get that unlocked, we can put a forestry industry in here. Now that I look at it, it's probably a bit too dense, and it's probably eating up a fair bit of my frames. So what I'm going to do is just quickly thin it out a bit. Brush strength, because I did put a fair bit in there. So now what we can see is when we look at resources, there's a heap of forestry in there, so we can just put our forestry buildings in there and away we go. Alright, speaking of painting things, let's get rid of the ore on the edge here, wherever I put it there, because that doesn't need to be there. That was me testing. Alright, we do need to think about a different way of powering our city as well. Our city, we're generating enough electricity, but I don't like relying on just these. What I would like to put in is, where are they? The wave generator. Yeah, these ones. Wave power plant. So that does about the same amount, but I like them better. That's just me. Alright. We'll see you in the next episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date with our with my series. Yeah, this is the problem. Not enough customers because we've got a higher demand for residential. Yeah, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that bell button so that you get notified when the next episode's up. And until then, we'll see you next time. Bye bye.